What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I gotta say, this past year has been very life-changing, and not for the reason that you might think. That's right, I am now a father, and that is both scary and exciting at the same time, and it is absolutely life-changing in the best way possible. Now, the whole reason you even clicked on this video in the first place, let's take a look at the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. First glance, this camera's gonna look pretty beefy. Let's open it up and take a look, shall we? Wow, this is a lot bigger than expected. That's what she said. But, man, this is coming up from DSLRs and everything in the past. I was not expecting a camera this beefy, to say the least. I don't know if there's quite another word for it, but I feel like beefy well suits this. Now, it's not in a bad way, it's just not something that I'm personally used to. Now, if we actually take a caliper and measure it, we'll see just how tall this thing exactly is. Now, this was quite a big surprise. I mean, when you expect 4.82 inches from top to bottom, you're not quite expecting something quite like this. And the body from front to back is almost the same. It's about 4.54 inches, and it doesn't even cover the full length right here. Yep, longer than 6 inches. This is as far as my caliper will go, or 154 millimeters if that more suits your fancy. Now, other than the size, this thing has quite a bit of fancy features, but first let's take a look at what comes inside the box. First off, it comes with awesome sticker, if you're into stickers. It comes with the full Resolve Studio suite, and this actually has almost 2 licenses, so you get to use the same license twice. So in case your computer crashes or you switch over your hard drives or something like that, you get a backup just in case, but I'd use it sparingly because you only get 2. And you get the charger, the wall adapter, which comes with various different plugs for whatever country you're in. So all the European and South American and stuff like that. Also comes with one NPF 550/570. Oh, also comes with a strap. I don't know where my strap is. I kind of lost it already. But you know, the typical DSLR strap that goes, I'm not really into them, so it doesn't really matter to me. Now, one of the biggest and most helpful features that has ever been put onto a Blackmagic camera is this tilting screen. It goes about 45 degrees this way and a full 180 about right there. And I can't tell you how helpful having it go right here is, because typically you going handheld like this in I call it DSLR mode, is you tend to shoot about from the lower chest region right here, so you're always kind of looking down. Yeah, the EF mount would help with that, but personally, I don't really have a use for it unless I have a shoulder rig and I want the EF mount like right on my eye, but that's not possible with this version. Although I've heard quite a few good things about the EF mount for this camera, but for me, it's just not something that quite interests me. Now, as far as media goes, you have a few options. So you have the SSD option with the USB-C, and that's where I went. So I have a 1 terabyte Samsung T5 with this small rig mounted to the top. I tried it on the bottom, which was I couldn't set it down on in any flat surfaces as much, so I went ahead and mounted it to the top, and it was just quick, easy run and gun shooting that I like to have. And it gets pretty firm in there. One thing I do recommend is getting a 90-degree angle for both the HDMI and the USB-C. Mine hasn't come in yet, but those will help tremendously when rigging out. Now, as far as 1 terabyte and what you're going to be able to get, and this is something that I had no idea, I couldn't find anywhere, with 1 terabyte at full 6K resolution using the entire sensor and at 24 frames per second, or 23.97, you're going to get around 173 minutes of actual recording available. So now if you decide to do any slow-mo or any other type of resolution or ProRes, that's going to vastly change. But if you're shooting B-RAW 6K 23.97, expect about 173 to 178 minutes available. The other option is the CFast card. So it has an option for a CFast and an SD card. Now you can't record 6K B-RAW to an SD card because the write speeds aren't fast enough, but you can to a CFast 2.0 card. So I went with the SSD because I get more bang for my buck compared to a CFast card, but I gotta say, after having this on top, I kind of like the idea of a CFast card for remaining inconspicuous and having just a small setup. That's kind of the point of having a pocket cinema camera, right? And one of the other external changes that they made to this version compared to the regular 6K is they added these 2 quarter 20 mounts. Oh man, if you ever mounted a camera on a tripod, like everybody has said, it is a game changer. You can't ever mount a camera with just 1 quarter 20. You need 2. You know, and especially with something that weighs about a little over 2 pounds and it's kind of heavy, you definitely need the second mount. And of course, we have the new ND filters. So there's 2, 4, and 6 stops. So you can switch them easily here or with the touch screen. Now, it's so much easier with these buttons, and it clearly lets you know what setting you are at. And I gotta say, the ND filters, having something in front of the sensor and behind the lens, is a tremendous help, especially when doing run and gun shooting. If you want to just go and take the camera out like this, you get 1 lens, 3 filters. You could shoot anywhere with this thing. There's no limitations to what you can do, especially if you have, like, say, a Sigma 18 to 35 or whatever. You can do almost anything with just this camera and 1 lens, because the ND filters allow you to have so much versatility. I know some people have been complaining about their screens having the blue tint, and unfortunately, I got it. So, I don't know if you could tell. Let's see if it comes up on this. There's a bluish hue on my screen. It's not internal. It's not baking it into the footage or anything. It is solely on the screen. And from what I'm told is that Blackmagic is supposed to be releasing a firmware update soon, hopefully. As of recording this, they haven't yet. So hopefully that can change it, because as of right now, shooting B-RAW looks kind of ugly, to say the least. But that I understand it's supposed to be desaturated and all that, but looking at it in that blue tonal shift it's kind of discouraging when you first open the box. Brand new 6K camera that you spent all this money on, and there's a blue shift. It's sad, but I mean, unfortunate quality control issues. I totally understand, and just release the firmware update. That's all we ask. Aside from that, the screen is fantastic. Shooting in broad daylight, downtown, early in the morning, sun beaming down on you, I had no problem looking at the screen, no matter what angle, whether I had it flipped all the way down or all the way in, tilted down. It did not matter. I had absolutely no issues. None. And it's bright enough to where it can withstand anything from the sun, which I absolutely loved and enjoyed. I don't need any hood or anything like that. It's just me and my camera. Now, if we go to the side here, we have a full-size HDMI. I don't know why, but I thought it had a mini HDMI, so I had to get a whole new cable. Other than the HDMI, it has, of course, microphone in and headphone out. Of course, the USB-C and power. And this time, instead of one, there is 2 mini XLR inputs, so you could go straight into the camera. Now, if you have everything on the side, you're gonna have all this hanging off. And I haven't decided if I want to rip mine off yet. I just don't want any dust or anything getting into the internals from these exposed ports. So let's talk about lenses and the sensor. So at 6K, using the full sensor, you're gonna get a 1.55 times crop factor. So it is a super 35mm sensor, which if you have any full frame lenses, like I do here, all my lenses are full frame, you're gonna get a 1.55 times crop factor on them. So effectively, this 14mm lens is more like a 21, and a 35 is gonna get closer to a 50. So if you want something super wide, shooting, say, real estate, I would suggest something like this from Tokina ATX 11-20 f2.8. So it is still an EF mount, but it is made for APS-C sensors. So the Super 35 is a little bit smaller than a regular standard APS-C. So you're gonna get still a tad bit of a crop factor, but nothing significant to where it's going to drastically change your focal length. Now, you don't have to get all APS-C lenses to get the correct focal length that you want, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, you can still keep your full frame lenses. I know I am. You just have to be a little bit more mindful when you're choosing your lens choices. So all of your lenses are still going to have the same effects. For example, a wide is still going to have distortion on the edges. An 85, for example, is still going to look very flat because the focal length is so long. So it's something to keep in mind, and especially considering that the 4K doesn't use the full sensor. If you want to shoot DCI, it is cropped in, so that's going to be an additional crop factor. So anything that you're not shooting with the full sensor, you're gonna have an additional crop factor on top of that already a little slightly over 1.5 times. So it's something to keep in mind if you are looking to purchase this camera. Which brings me to my next absolute favorite thing about this camera is the dual native ISO. So if you've never heard of that before, here's what it is. Every camera has a native ISO, so what it shoots best at. So for example, the Red Scarlet or that I used to work with back in the day, it had a native ISO of 800. So you want to keep it at that because that is going to be the cleanest image that it will provide you. Now you can go obviously lower, so if it shoots at 800 and overly bright, and you could go down to like 400, 200, yeah, but you typically want to keep it at that native ISO. The great thing about this is it has dual native ISO. So if I wanted to shoot at the native ISO of 400, I can do that. And if, say, something is too dark, it has a higher native ISO of 3200. So it opens up the possibilities of not complete low light. Now, if you take a look at this shot, for example, all the lights are gone. Sunlight is gone. The only thing shining is the lamp posts in the back. Noise is everywhere. But what it allows for is being a little bit more creative with your natural light. Now, that doesn't mean that you can shoot with no light like the A7S, but it's definitely something that is more of a benefit than a hindrance. Now, another really important factor when considering whether or not you should actually buy this camera is the rigging. So this is an unfortunate side effect with the Pocket Cinema line that Blackmagic has. Started way back when they first released the cameras too, is the rigging. What's great is you get a cheap camera at very basic price, $2,400. You're gonna spend at least $1,000 more, an extra $2 maybe, on rigging. So if you want it shoulder mounted, if you want this mount for the SSD, you're gonna spend some bucks. So what is that gonna look like? So if you don't have any type of rigging, any type of other cinema camera accessories, you're gonna have to spend more than you think, unfortunately. But it might be a good thing for you. You never know. So it might force you to get a little bit more creative with your shots, and work with what you have. That is always a good thing. Don't look at it as a hindrance. Look at it as a goal. I get this job, I can put this portion of this job's profits to this accessory. Don't ever spend all of it on accessories, but you can work your way up to it. It's something that's kind of the fun part of it, to be honest. I know I love it. I always enjoy getting new gear, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is what can this camera do and how can it help you achieve your visual goals? That is ultimately, at the end of the day, what this camera needs to be able to do. And for me, this camera absolutely does that. Now, just for fun, let's see what this looks like all rigged up. This is the fun part. One other thing I really highly recommend if you're ever gonna get camera gear or any cinema gear really is get one of these. It'll help keep you organized, keep your gear safe, and honestly, you're not gonna leave a mess everywhere. Whenever I worked as an AC for various different projects, honestly, building the camera was probably my favorite part of every single day. Alright, so this is what it looks like fully rigged up, and I gotta say, something that goes from looking like a DSLR in your hand to this. I mean, you can make any DSLR look like this, but something that's gonna get you that quality, that cinema quality, and something this light. It's not gonna be as heavy. I still get that cinema quality that I pull this on set, and the client is gonna think you're one heck of a professional. Honestly, you can't go wrong with this camera. I've found wrongs with it, yes, but all the pros that you get from this thing is just, they far outweigh and all the negatives for me personally. Now, you might have a different opinion, and that's perfectly fine. This camera's just probably not for you, which that's something that you got to take a look at from a business perspective, if you're using it for business and personal. Now, I've been a fan of Blackmagic's for a long time, and this is something that I've always wanted to have. When 4K Verse came out, I really wanted it, but couldn't get it at the time. 6K, I absolutely loved it, wanted it, but I had a feeling they were gonna put something more, and lo and behold, this guy came out. So it's something that you gotta really look at from what's gonna suit your needs. Is the Canon C70 gonna be better for you? Is the Sony A7S, do you have all Sony lenses? Do you want to spend money on rigging like this? Now, this wasn't terribly expensive or terribly cheap, but it did add almost an extra $1,000 for me. It's something to look at. So if that's something that you want to do and you don't mind, go for it. But look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what you need. Now, this is a very broad and general review. It's not too in-depth. I didn't really want to go in-depth right now. I'll probably do a follow-up about a month or two from now, just to see if I still like the camera. Did it live up to my expectations, what I wanted it to do? Is it gonna make me more money? That's kind of what we all want to know, right? Will it make us more money by having something more cinematic, the best new camera that is super affordable? Will it give us that cinema look consistently over time? Will I get better at the camera? Will I get worse? All that. So if you liked this review, if you thought it was crap, no matter what, leave a comment, please. I'll try to respond to every single one of them. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. For more, I have some more reviews. If you want to see a little bit more in-depth review of this rig, where I got it, I will leave links in the description down below for everything you see here. So even down to this follow focus, and this is actually the same monitor I reviewed in my last video. It's still kicking, I love it. But with that said, this has been the review for my review for the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro. They have not sponsored, they have not paid me, they have not had any communication with me as far as I know. So this has just been an honest review of a camera that I have been looking to get into and buy for many years and finally did it. So will it live up to expectations? We'll find out in the next video. See you later.